Hello and welcome to There Will Be Dancing. This is my first pamphlet on Red Squirrel Press, and we did hope to have a number of book launches and readings, but sadly COVID-19 has chased them away for now, but we do hope to be in the flesh as soon as we can. However, this video does provide an opportunity to share the work with you, and I'm very pleased to be able to do that. But first, I must thank Sheila Wakefield for her work in producing the pamphlet, Jerry Cambridge for the wonderful cover and the and setting it all out, and of course David Costello, who worked tirelessly as my editor, and we had to drink many pints of beer in The Lazy Landlord. And of course, I have to thank the person behind the camera and behind much of the driving force to this, Caroline Wilson, my good wife and companion on many occasions. I am going to start with the first poem in the book, which is A Sense of Purpose. Now, this poem came about after a team meeting. I was working in an office, and our manager said, "The purpose of this morning," which is really quite the wrong thing to say to a poet. A sense of purpose. The purpose of this morning is to slide the hours into the afternoon, with the constant swish of performance indicators falling without reason past the third floor window. The days brisk with autumn air on distant hills. The purpose of this morning is to let the sun rise high above this building and drag its shadow from one side to the other. The gulls fly westward, making for the sea. The purpose of this morning is to make the space wide enough for all this drudgery to slip into place and settle in the dusty vaults of the brain. A dead man scrapes at the window pane, not yet allocated to his place in heaven or hell. I did give my manager a copy of the poem after the team meeting, and I think she was pleased. The next poem is the oldest poem in the pamphlet. I entered it into the Chester Poets Open Competition in 1981 and surprisingly won. I've been with the Chester Poets ever since, and they are amongst my best friends. So winning the competition was truly a life-changing event. It's published in this book here, Chester Poets 8. And as well as publishing it for free, they later gave me all their money when they made me the group's treasurer. Advice to Lot's wife. Once you've decided what to do, get on with it. Do not spend too long on desert corners thinking about ethics, reasons and things. There are none to be found there. When under such scrutiny, even the best ideas will turn to stone. Just pack your tent and go, alone if necessary, and don't ask questions that you don't need to ask. If you should hear the roar of fire close behind, ignore it. Don't tire of running till the race is through. There will be time enough for you to ask those questions and maybe think up some answers then. Don't be tempted by paths that lead away from Zoa, if that is where you say you're going. Don't be petrified in the hot vastness when the wide plain surrounds you, nor be conformed by cities where your brain is pawned to pay the rent. Now, if you're set on going, hurry, and don't let doubt stand in your way. Keep wisdom at your side. Then, when the sounds from the cities stop you in your tracks, above all else, please, don't look back. I've had some feedback from some of the books that have been sold over the past few months, and this one people seem to like, so I'm including it in this reading, and it's The Time Fairy. The Time Fairy removes the hours from busy days and dumps them in places you least want to be. She steals whole weeks in the run-up to Christmas, then spreads them a dark slush in the lassitude of the winter's night. She snatches time from the lips of parting lovers on railway platforms everywhere. Then you may see her skipping round bus queues, especially in the rain, sprinkling them with minutes, hours, and lengthening grim faces on autumn homeward journeys. Gardeners know her best as they await their most prized blooms. For all about, the weeds grow double quick in lengthened mornings sparkled with dew. Her meanest trick is to the old, whose years flash as a day. But to the very young she gives an age between each high or holiday. The Time Fairy. She wrings the moments from all life's pleasures and drips them into the waiting hours when we are most desolate and wanting. Water. Water was the theme for last year's Festival of First poetry section, and so we wrote poems about water. Every drop. I am the drip that whirs the stone. Darkly I fill the upland wastes, then trickle the hillside where I crash and fall. I am the roar at the valley's heart, where I sing my song as I dash to be free. I am the green upon the lawn, the juice that feeds the forest pine. Each little sip the sparrow takes, each cup of tea, each cask of wine. Trapped underground, I have distilled the years where I've been the maker of caverns and spires. Caught out by the cold at the roof of the world, or at the earth's poles, where I turn so solid I can crush the rocks. Your great ships may cruise me, careless you've abused me, as you clutter the oceans with pain. But I am the one drip inside your collar, who'll shudder a chill down your spine. Tougher than Belfast steel, I am heavier than the air you breathe. I am the force that can sweep you away. I will rise and fill up these fields, drown your crops and livestock, This planet has always been mine. From the stiffness in the plant stem, the liquid in the blood, I float all the things you do, and I am always the better part of you. Growing up in New Ferry, I was lucky to share the house with my maternal grandparents, Nana and Pop. They moved into Tranmere in 1919 so that Pop could work in the shipyards. And this poem's inspired by him. And it's called Music. He once played the clarinet like generations before, but by the time I knew him, he didn't have the teeth for it. And that finely tuned ear that had led the Sunday school choir had become numbed by almost 40 years of clanging in the shipyard din. But rhythm. He could listen to an engine and tell you to a stroke if the mixture was too rich, or the piston rings too warm, or the big end's about to go. That was his music. He couldn't make out the muffled slur of the gramophone. Drunken men singing through keyholes, his father-in-law had called it, and he had agreed. Where other sounds lost their sense to him, the engine's steady pulse still remained. Whether it was in a ship or some old Ford or locomotive or static in a mill, he'd worked them all and knew their scales. He was small enough to climb into spaces that other men could never reach, and so he became intimate with the metal and the thrust of it all. And nothing could beat that fine tuning with feelers and the subtle flinch of tiny screws coaxing some sullen block into a crescendo of life. Then he'd stand there, listening, humming to its song. Now and again I have occasion to do a bit of roadieing for my good friend Helen. Helen sings in some pretty rum places, not the sort of establishment where one could safely take out a notebook, if you get my drift. So this next poem started life on the phone. It was safer that way. It's called Electric Minstrel. Plugged in and tune selected, the electric minstrel fills the air with a beat they will know and a voice that must coax. Some may glance her way in the lull of conversations, but she is the salt of the diners, the liquid of the glass. Her mother was a jukebox, her father played the fiddle. Long ago there was someone playing a lute while people, as always, shouted over the racket. Her job is to entertain, distract and take away the silence. She is in every town, every encampment, wherever people have knotted together. She drives through the rain, as she always has, down mud-spattered lanes, with carts or whatever could be carried on groaning backs. And this road is no place for the squeamish. Many have fallen. Buddy Holly, Johnny Kidd, Eddie Cochran are just a few. Yet she will battle above the rows, the women who teeter towards a fight and the drunken laughter. She will get their attention. Now someone is singing in the corner. Bodies unwittingly move to the beat. They have learned to accept her voice, and there will be dancing. Continuing with the family theme, the first line of this next poem was taken from Jackie Kay's autobiography, Red Dust Road. I bought a copy for my sisters. They both have quite a bit in common. They both have Nigerian birth fathers who they hadn't met. They were both brought up in predominantly white or exclusively white neighbourhoods, and yes, with white either adoptive or foster families in the 1960s. Sister. My sister is a red dust road, the back-to-backs of Birkenhead, a puzzle that remains untold. Hid in the lining we have sewed about our core with unseen threads. My sister is a red dust road, stretched from a distant land of old, to reach this place we cannot shed. A puzzle that remains untold, which binds us and does not corrode, despite the tangled paths we tread. My sister is a red dust road that sways and sings an unknown ode from Africa to Birkenhead, a puzzle that remains untold. We grew together, though not bred by parents who might well have said, my sister is a red dust road, a puzzle that remains untold. And the last one from this family section is translation. In the citron, listening to Piaf, the snow thickening as we drive towards the hills, and you humming along with the winter sun bright on the fields, sky enigmatic blue. We cross the border, mark how the river has been displaced. Traffic is sparse but slow. At the top of the pass we stop, leave the car and follow a fox's footprints up the hill. The world below as pure as a wedding gown, your blushed cheek. Later we explore charity shops, try our hand at translating from the Welsh the sign above the card shop by the bridge, and realise we already know what it means. There is no need to explain. Are you sitting comfortably? This next poem is Nosferatu. There was no going back. He'd been too many people, all flotsam in his wake. Some had sunk into oblivion, while others crashed with the voiceless slam of a door. A wave sprawled distant on the sand. He knew no birth without the salt of tears, and each new life brought fear and its own ruin. The dead could never return, and he had given up all hope for the lost. He continued, seeking the sting of daylight, enjoying each new version of himself, wringing life to the full. Now he was far away, his former selves fading as he moved on and on and on. Yet each night he slept in a box of his own native earth, with visions of childhood teasing his head, waking each day, wasted and dispossessed. Still on the dark theme now, you might have noticed. This next poem is Monster. From its inception, we knew that anything without the power of decay would one day haunt us and our children's children throughout the treads of time. We saw its strength, admired its flexibility, and moulded it to suit our own image. Strange how we let it take over, how it became essential to everything we touched. Even as it carried our shopping, we knew we could never rid ourselves of him. If we buried him in the ground, he would always be there at the turning of a spade. Now he hangs ghoulish from the trees, clutters the streets, spreads into the world's farthest corners. In the sea he floats like some overblown oligarch, swirling with the current, becoming his own island. He spews on every beach, strangles wildlife, and now becomes small enough to drip into the food chain, slowly poisoning his creators. There are 18 poems in this pamphlet, and I've read about half of them. I'm going to finish with this one, and it's To Autumn. So, here you are again. I loved you in my youth. You had me melt into those deep brown eyes, snuggled into your soft woolen jumpers, your russet coat fallen on the threshing floor. I would taste wild berries crushed against your lips, and when your chill winds raged, I could rejoin with hail and rain. But now I am old enough to appreciate the softer scents of spring and the promise of warmth she brings. I see the swipe of your harvester and view with suspicion the furrows of your plough. Thank you, and There Will Be Dancing is available from my website, that's kemalhoughton.com, and I'll send you a signed copy. You can get in touch with me there, and look forward to see you in the flesh sometime soon. Bye.